Beis? Okay, we're learning Tanya Chapter Beis today. It's very exciting.
The big one.
Baruch Hashem. First of all, thank you for coming. Without you, there wouldn't be a Shiur. Now we know with certainty. And let's see. Perek Beis, one of the most famous prakim in Tanya, very important perek of Tanya. Two nekudis. I just want to say I'm not here to cover every angle and to make every wrong right. So there are two major inyanim. One is what we learn in Chassidus, that a neshama, that a yid and a goy are not the same. That a yid has a neshama that's a chelik alakam in mal mamish. And then the second inyan is the role of a rebbe. The role of a rebbe not as a spiritual teacher, but the role as a rebbe, as someone who connects us to Hashem. And as we'll discuss, so it's very, very important, fundamental inyanim. The perek is a lot. It's a packed perek, so we're going to go quickly. And don't hesitate. Any questions? Please don't hesitate. I just want to start off by saying one of the lessons from one of the Rebbe's messages about Sefer Tanya is that when the Alter Rebbe says in the introduction that the purpose of Tanya is that Karev Eilecha Hadavar Ma'od. So the Rebbe says it's all of Tanya. It's not like, the first few prakim, first we have to tell you what the neshama is like, then we'll get to Karev Eilecha. The Rebbe says no. Every perek, it's all part of the Karev Eilecha story. So Perek Beis is very important in the role of Karev Eilecha. Why is it very close to you? How could it be close to you to serve Hashem? And the answer from this perek is because we're a chelik alakam mimal. It's actually much more who we are than we think. So that's a practical point. So let's take a look. Perek Beis. The nefesh Hashem is b'Yisrael, the second nefesh, which is exclusively for Yidden. Even the first nefesh is different by Yidden than a goy. But the nefesh Hashem is only Yidden have it. He chelik alakam mimal mamish is literally a part of Hashem. Now the loshen chelik eleka, the word eleka, not elikus, is not godliness. It's God. Like a slice of an apple. It's a chelik, it's a part. Like the Pasuk says, chelik havaya amay. We are a part. We're a section. We're the same DNA. It's the same inyan. Not elikus. And this idea of mamish is not the Alter Rebbe's chidush. The Alter Rebbe doesn't add the word mamish. It's already in earlier Sfarim. The word chelik alakam mimal is a Pasuk in Eiv. And adding the word mamish, that it's literally a chelik alaka, even that was already before. The Rebbe Rashab says that chelik alaka mimal mamish is like a oxymoron, a paradox, that it's mimal, it contains the highest, and it's mamish in the most tangible way, that it's tangible. Now, nefesh hashenis. So in general, there are many reasons why we call it the second nefesh. One reason why we call it nefesh hashenis is because it comes later. The nefesh habam is there first. Agdim etayinise, it comes first. Another reason is because the nefesh habahamis is actually stronger. The nefesh hashenis is secondary; it's weaker because the nefesh habahamis is from toihu. But I like. There's another idea that I'd like to. I don't know if you remember when I heard this talk by Rabbi Jonathan Rieti. It's a very interesting man. So when I came back, I was very excited by the things I remember sharing here in Shull. So he says in Torah, the Torah's focus is on what matters. So it's like in the beginning of creation, it talks about Hashem created the sun and the moon And then he created man. And then once he creates man, we don't talk about anything else. So we don't talk about the trees and we don't say, oh, and what happened to the fish? Right? What happened to Adam? Then as we go further, there becomes a Noach. What happened to all the other? He mentions all the other nations, and then we forget about them. We focus on this one. And Eila tells us Yaakov, it says Yitzchak, Yaakov and Esau. Yaakov. We don't talk about Esau. You put him in a can. So there's always this honing in on what's important. That's what happens here. We have Nev Shashenis. Oh, now forget about whatever happened before. This is what the purpose is. We're gonna stay focused on the purpose. Like the pasuk says, "Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim." The Alter Rebbe introduces 3 mishalim that to highlight that a yid's neshama is different than every other creation. One is Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim. It says by Adam Arishin that he blew. The world was created through dibur, and Adam Arishin's neshama was blown. And then it's not only about Adam Arishin's neshama. We say every morning, "Ve'ata nafachta bi." Hashem, you blew it into me. So every one of us says "Ve'ata nafachta." That man the nafach miteche nafach. That blowing is from the inner. This is a very good season. We blow shofar. So we know that when a person blows shofar, it exhausts you. You get red in the face because. When you blow shofar, I don't know if you exercise your core muscles. You feel it.
Yeah.
If you've exercised previously your core muscles, then when you blow shofar, you feel it in your core. So it's miteiche nafach. It's from inside. Pirush. What does it mean miteiche nafach? Miteiche yusei umipnimi yusei, from your innermost. A person gives out their inner strength. When a person speaks, you could speak endlessly. You don't tire. But blowing, because it's pnimius, that's why it exhausts. It's your essence. I also give this mashal that when we speak and we block our mouth, we could still be heard. But when you blow, if there's something in between, so it's an obstacle. So the neshama of a yid is a direct connection, not like the dibur, that there's a hefsek and there's tzimtzumim. It doesn't have to be a direct link. So he brings a lashon of Chazal, olu b'machshava. In machshava, it's from the highest place in machshava. I just want to say that the Alter Rebbe here, when he uses the word machshava, he's not using it in the sense of garments, of levushim. He didn't talk yet about machshava dibur u'maisa. Here he's interchangeable. The brain, it means the innermost spiritual part of Hashem in the Shiur Adam Kadmon, the highest level in machshava. That's where Yisrael originate at the highest point, right? What does Chazal say? Torah comes before the world and the Yidden come before the world. Which one comes before which? Oh, when you look in the Torah, it says Tzavas B'nai Yisrael. So the Yidden come before the Torah. Right? So it's like to imagine, to imagine a couple getting married and having this hope that they're going to have a family. In other words, the Eibishter created a world. There was a vision of what was coming. And what is that? That's Neshamas Yisrael. Neshamas Yisrael are the origin of everything. So, Olu b'machshava kediksiv, like it says, B'ni b'chayri Yisrael, that the Yidden are, what do we say by Paroi? It says, Hashem says, Moshe says to Paroi, B'ni b'chayri Yisrael. And the pasuk says in Devarim, "Banim atem laHashem aleikeichem," you are like Hashem's children. So here we have 2 mishalim. We have the mashal of a machshava to a dibur, blowing, machshava, and banim. Banim atem laHashem aleikeichem. I just want to say about machshava for a minute that dibur, when we speak, it's hopefully it's an adjustment made. What's your language? What are you interested in? Machshava is the way I think. When I think, I'm not considering how you're gonna, it's my thoughts. Dibur is your experience, your projection towards others. So when Hashem created the world, it's Hashem showing something to others. But Hashem's machshava is Himself. That's the place of Yisrael Olu b'machshava. I would switch to the earpods, but I don't think you could do it in the middle when it's live. I'm sorry for the background noise. For posterity. Yeah, and then the Yidden are bonim atem l'Hashem leikechem, a ben. B'ra kara do'avua, a child is a piece of his father. The Yidden are a piece of Hashem. Pirush, k'mei shehaben nimshach mimeach ha'av, like a child. So here, the Alter Rebbe says a child comes from his father's brain. So, it's like, one of the ideas in Chassidus, right? One of the ideas in Chassidus, that Dibur is Ein Sof. How is Dibur Ein Sof? Because when you speak, you don't lose weight. There's nothing running out inside. The same thing, when you talk about having a child, the tippa, sperm, there's not like a piece of the brain is missing. Right. People would lose their brains. Yeah, it's not like a piece of your brain is missing. The Alter Rebbe is saying that in Ruchnius HaInyanim, first of all, we have an idea that Ein Kishi Ela Ladas, that to have a child, there has to be intent, it has to be.
It wasn't Tanya's, something.
Yeah, we had that's right, in the Shiur Chitas, right. Right, Ribuya Taiva. So he's speaking about in Ruchnius. There's a Ruchnius like when we talk about chemicals in the body, they generate that from the brain there becomes a hashpah gashmius that comes through the spine. That, in other words, however it manifests, that it becomes. However the sperm is created. But it begins in a ruchniistic state, and it's the DNA of the father. The point is that the DNA of the father, the etzem of the father, and the etzem of the father is the mayach. So the mayach ha'av is nimshach in the tippa. So k'meisha ben nimshach me'mayach ha'av, kach kevyochel, so too, the word kevyochel is a neutrika, and it's a combination of two words. Chaf Beis Yochel. What does that mean? Chaf Beis Yochel means I can't say such a thing, but the Torah says it. If the Torah says it, right? Kavyochel, the Eibishter says that the Yidden are like his children. I can't say such a thing, but he says it. So Kavyochel, the Eibishter could say it if he says. Come on, yeah. The Nishmas Kol Ish Yisrael, the neshama of every Yid, Nimshecha. Mi machshavto, you see that he says machshava? Again, he doesn't mean machshava, right? He doesn't mean machshava as in the levush. He means the spiritual space of intelligence. Machshavto v'chachmasa yizbarich, of the Eibishter's chachma. Yeah, I want to talk about this for a moment. The Rambam says that Hashem is hu amada, hu ayedea, hu ayedua. Right? What is the Rambam saying? A human being, no human being can possibly know all wisdom. Right. You could know certain, right? In other words, what do we know? We discovered a certain percentage about the universe, about the brain, about, right? We're learning. The Eibishter is, what does it mean that he is the Mada? He's the in other words, there are three parts. There's the brain, there's the science, and then there's the thing that's known.
Now the AI is going in this direction.
Right. But you understand what I'm saying? The thing that's known, in other words, there's a house, And then there are the principles by which the engineering is sound. So that's the science of the house, whatever, yeah? There are the rules. There's the chokhmah in the house. And there's the house. So there's three things. There's the knower, there's what's known, and then there's the knowledge. The knowledge is the science of what's known. The Eibishter, being that it's all part of him, he knows everything b'shleimus. He's not discovering, he's not learning about the science. And it's impossible. Only by Hashem,
Right.
To know completely all of the knowledge is not possible. Right? So,
There's so much knowledge.
what is Chokhmah? Dr. Rebbe says in Perek Lamed Hey in the Agor, Chokhmah is that there's only Hashem. In other words, what is true wisdom? True wisdom is to recognize that the true existence is only the Eibishter. In Chokhmah, what is it? There's only Eibishter. So, where are our neshamas from Hashem's Chokhmah? What is Chokhmah? That there's only Hashem. So that's what a neshama is. Complete vittul, completely, it's elikus. The ihu chakim, the leiv chokhmah yediyah, the Eibishter's knowledge is in a completely different realm. Elohu v'chachmasi echad, it's not parts. Kumishakos of Rambam, shuhamada v'hu yediyah chu. Now you could go into a whole Torah here about the Maharal, and that the Maharal was how could the Rambam say such a thing? The Hashem is wisdom, but that's not right. But let's take a look at the Haggadah. The Chachmei HaKabbalah, what does it mean? What is it when we say the Chachmei HaKabbalah? What are we trying to say? The Chachmei HaKabbalah, they had a job. They had one role. The Chachmei HaKabbalah said, all of you who never learned Chassidus, right? In other words, in the ancient days, you need to know that when it says in the Chumash that the Jewish people saw the Yad HaGdoila, Vayar Yisrael as a Yad HaGdoila, it doesn't actually mean a hand. When it says in Chumash that Hashem saw, it doesn't mean actually. Yeah, right. Lahaf Shitadvarim. That's what the Chachmei HaKabbalah said. It's symbolic of it, but it's not. So now the Rambam says, Hu Hamada. So the Chachmei HaKabbalah, the first thing they're going to say is, no, it doesn't really mean. So he says, V'hoid le Chachmei HaKabbalah. The Chachmei HaKabbalah, they're masking with the Rambam. That Hu Hamada. Mishkosa Bepardes Miharamak. The Ramak was an early Mekubal, before the Arizal. The Ramak's point was that the distance between Atzilus and Hashem is much greater than the distance of this world and Atzilus. Okay, and there's no tzimtzum. It's all Ilavol. The Gam, Lefi Kabbalah, so Arizal, even according to the Arizal, Yitzim and will say it's true. It's also true. Even according to the Arizal, that there is tzimtzum, there's still true. The Soid, Hislapshus Ere Soid Baruch Hu, Ayidei Tzimtzumim Rabim, Bekelim the Chabad Atzilus. The way Hashem manifests in Atzilus, it's true. That the Eibishter is the Mada and the Idea, it's true. But not higher than Atzilus, because higher than Atzilus, it's not shaykh to say about the Eibishter wisdom. Hashem is infinitely beyond, to the extent that wisdom is nechsheves ka'asiya gufnis atzlei yizbarech. Legabi Hashem, it's like asiya gufnis is a thoughtless act. In other words, you have an action. He's a pitcher. Oh, so he pitches 90 miles an hour.
It's like biological function. Asiya gufnis is like.
It's like walking down the street kicking a pebble.
Right. Okay.
Your hand. Or
is it even less? It's like a digesting food.
Like digesting food? Digesting food.
You totally thought.
No, the place of digesting food is that you have no choice.
Yeah.
right? But we're not trying to say
Oh, okay.
that you don't have a choice, right? By Hashem, Chochma is like an asiyah, and less. Continuing in the Tanya, the Dover is this concept. What's he trying to say? He's trying to say that by the Eibishter, the unity of we're saying that a neshama is a chelik alakam imal mamish. We're nimshach from Hashem's chochma. Chochma by Hashem is not like chochma by a human being. Whatever knowledge we know, we are absorbing knowledge about something that's outside of us. We don't know the science. The idea that we're learning about is outside of us. What does our seichel do? Our seichel introduces external things to us. In a certain way, emotions are much more me than thoughts.
Because they resonate.
Because I'm experiencing the emotion. I know there's also a you understand. I understand. Verstehe. Yeah. But in a certain way, the whole function of seichel as a human being is my experience with the outer world. So he says by the Eibishter it's not like that. By the Eibishter it's hu v'chachmasa yechad, because there are no. He's not a composition of parts together. He says v'davar zeh, this unity of Hashem and His wisdom, ein b'yecheles ha'adam la'avini al bu yechul. We can't understand it fully. Kidiksiv ha'cheker elekatimtza. Can we research, understand? Uksiv kilei machshavei se machshavei seichem. The Eibishter's thoughts are not like our thoughts. V'geiner. So that's the first part of Tanya. So the first part of Perek Beis, the Alter Rebbe establishes that a Yid is a chelik alakam imal mamish, literally like breath, like a child. We're a piece of Hashem. Now the Alter Rebbe continues with the next question, with a question. Ve'af sheyesh revavis mini chalukah madreges b'neshamas. There are tens of thousands of, if we all have one origin, how is it that in the outcome there are different levels of spiritual sensitivity? Why are some people more connected and others less? So he says, although there are tens of thousands of different grades, let's say, Gedel Malas Neshavas Ha'avis or Moshe Rabbeinu Aleim HaSholem, right? The Avis. Compare them on the Shamas, Dereseinu Eila, the Ikve Meshicha. Sheim Bechines Ekvaya Mamish, they're literally like a heel. The idea of a heel is that they're lifeless. There's no emotion. There's no knowledge of Hashem the way they knew Hashem. Legabe relative to Hameach ve'Aresh. And not only is there such a in other words, you know, I told you I listened to many shiurim just preparing. So, you know, Rabbi Ashkenazi he says about. There was
the new Ashkenazi?
Yeah, the young. He says there was an article published in some magazine in 1950 titled "The Vanishing American Jew." It's a very famous title.
Yeah.
You know, The Vanishing American Jew. He says by
2050.
By 2000, this was in 1950.
Right,
he said that by 2000 there wouldn't be any Jews left in America. Besides assimilation, but also just naturally, the culture doesn't right. So he says, yeah, the magazine that published the article is closed. But and Baruch Hashem, but really,
on the other side, the New York Times had a 2000, what was it, 2000 or something edition, what the world would look like.
Y2K, yeah. That's a yeah.
They put the candle lighting.
That's right. I remember that. So, but Taka,
They're right.
In other words,
right.
Meilem Moshe Rabbeinu. You're saying Karev Ma'od, Chelek Alakam Imal, Neshama. We're so numb. We're so numb to Ruchnius. Well, you're telling me that I have a Chelek Alakam Imal Mamish. Where is this life? He says V'chein B'chol Der V'der. Not only relative to the others, but even in our own. So every generation that we're farther away. You know, a person passes away. We say, they don't make them like they used to. Such ehrlichkeit, such spirituality, such a connection to Hashem. It's like we're becoming more and more magushim. And it's true. There are leaders. So the nishmas hamayin, the lay person, and the people of the world who are preoccupied with gashmias. Not only are there differences mitzad the level of neshama, but even in the levels of nefesh. It's a big chiddush what Alter Rebbe is saying here. We have to understand what he's saying. Neshama are the part of us that learns and davens. So I understand the Rebbe learns and davens, and I learn and you can't compare. But nefesh is like the part of us that eats. Our physical, right? The spirituality, the life of our body. So he says, not only in the levels of neshama is there a difference, but even in nefesh, the way it manifests begashmi is like, what do we learn? The Rebbe Rashab said at the age of 12, he's going to mobilize his physical body to be automated to follow Shulchan Aruch. Like if he doesn't remember what the halacha is, he's going to watch his body do something, and that way he's going to know what the halacha is.
You still don't know how to wash hands.
Yeah.
Instinctively.
Yeah. Like it's a lashon is kera b'moedim. Like when you walk into a shul, they say baruch hu. You say baruch hu. You don't think about it. It's mindless. Even in the level of nefesh. Ki kol nefesh kolula mi nefesh ruach neshama. Neshama has nefesh and ruach in it. Nefesh also has in it. There's a more nefesh itself is also nefesh ruach neshama. There's like parts in each one. Mikol Mokem still. Oh, so we have a shaila. Mikol Mokem is the teretz. There's so many different levels. So I'm a part of the Eibishter. I'm so far. I'm not the brain. I'm not spiritually sensitive. It's Mikol Mokem. Sheirish kol nefesh ruach neshama kulam. The sheirish of every person. Meireish kol madreges had safe kol dargin. The Rebbe's father points out that dargin is an Aramaic. It's like a different caliber. To the lowest level, sub-basement. That's Malubish Bukuf Amei Oretz V'Kalsha B'Kalin, Nimshach Mimeach Elyin. Even Kalsha B'Kalin, even someone who doesn't treat Yiddishkeit seriously, it's all Nimshach from the supernal brain, from the Eibishter She'ih Chach Me'ilah K'Yach. How could that be? Moshel Aben, HaNimshach Mimeach Ha'av. Every part of the child is born, they already have nails. How does that happen? Al Yidei Shehiyasa Tisha Chadoshim Bebetanayim. Through gestation, by being in the mother's womb for 9 months. So what happened? The clump of cells developed, and this became a brain, and this became a finger, and this. The same DNA, all coming from the same muhus, all coming from Tipas Me'ach Ha'av, and all. So the Yordam Madrego, the Ishtanu, so there's Havis Mimena Tziparnayim. The Im calls it, even after the full development, Eideno Kshura Umyochedes Beyichud Nifla Va'atzum. The Tipa really is still a brain. Its origin, B'Musa Vatzmusa Harishin, and even as it's fully developed, even when it's born, v'gam achshav beben, once he's born, yenikas atziparnayim l'chayusam, where did the nails get their chayas from? Nimshechas me'ameach sheberesh. So really, there's a connection. In other words, in the child, there's a mayach that duplicates or replicates the father's mayach, and that's where the chayas of the body is. Kedisa v'gemara midasham. He says loiven. The father's contribution, shemimenu gidim v'atzomis and tziparnayim. There's one more thing there. He says that in Gan Eden, Adam Arishim, before the Chet, he had tziparnayim. But when he sinned, the tziparnayim fell out, so he was naked. But before he was covered, his whole body was tziparnayim. So he says, so the chayas of tziparnayim are related particularly to Moyach Habina.
You know, hairs from the Moyach and was Torah, nails
Yeah.
from the midas emotions. So Supernaya goes continuation of emotion.
That's why ladies paint their nails. That's why ladies paint their nails.
No, that's why Latin Chabad say before you say something, you have to watch
They're
your
covering their
nails.
mistake.
So this Indian, the Roshei Hoed's boys, is about when, at the end of the day, all the abstract, when it comes to practical application, it's in the fingertips. And when you bring the practical application, that's when it's the most delicate. If you do it right, a small mistake in the way something is applied is hurtful. So that's why they talk about trimming the fingernails, because that's like,
Yes,
right, how important not to scratch someone.
Somebody.
The extra sensitivity, so the pirud, the separate, like breaking down the protim when we relate, and the actual practical application. So that's a separate Indian, meaning that's like the Seif Maisa of Machshav Tchila. Ultimately, the bottom line is execution. Where does that happen? All the way at the end where the Tziponayim are, and that's where Midas are. That's why also we say in Chassidus that the main, even though we're Chabad, but Chabad is the way Chabad affects Midas. That the Midas are
under control.
right. So that's what you're speaking about is like that idea. Here he's speaking about the Gashmias, that the growth of the Tziporayim
Source.
relate,
What is
yeah,
source of
in the Me'ach HaBim. Yeah. The Kocha Mamish Kivyochel, it's exactly the same. The Sheirish. Oh, so now we have a Moshel and we have a Nimshel. The Moshel has a lot of details. There's the Tippa, and then there's gestation, and there's the different parts of the body, and there's the brain of the child. All these different chalokim. It says it's exactly the same. The Kocha Mamish Kivyochel, the Sheirish, Kol, Anefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, Shal Kolis, Yisrael, L'mayla. Our origin of all neshamas. As the neshama goes down through the Eilumis, every world shapes and changes, modifies the Ruchnius. All from Hashem's Chachma, it comes down through the worlds. We all originate from Chachma. The makir of everything is always in the same place. But in the Ishtalshos Ha'ilumis, Nishavu Mimenu, from the Ishtalshos they become, from the Chachma Ilah, from the Tippa, from Chachma Ilah becomes Nefesh Ruach Neshama Shel Ami Yaretz Upchus Yaretz. People who have very low spiritual sensitivity.
And it doesn't lose any of its potency, or
It does, but it still remains connected.
the same strength,
Yeah,
the same level.
the Im calls it. Eidena, Kshureis, Umyuchodis, even when the neshama comes down, it's connected, the nefesh, ruach, and neshama of this person is connected, B'yichud nifla va'atzum, b'mhusam v'atzmusan arishin, shiyam shachas chach meila. It's still a chelik al kamimah. Why? How? Ki nikas v'chayis nefesh, ruach, and neshama, shalam yaretz. Where are they yonik? Their chayis, who? Nefesh, ruach, and neshama, shalat tzadikim, v'achachamim, Rashi b'nei Yisrael shebedeirim, Rashi b'nei Yisrael, Rashi Tev is Rebbe. So here, Rabbi Yoel used to bring about this a lot. That there's a sefer called Kehelas Yaakov, and it's very interesting that the Rebbe brings it a lot. And the way Rabbi Yoel says it, he was like the guy wasn't such a saintly, to use such a word, But the Rebbe quoted him mamish from the first Fabrengen, you know what I mean? That is from the first year, not Yuchvat, but he says there in the Sefer that a Rebbe is Rosh Tevis, that Nasi is Rosh Tevis, Nitzuse Shel Yaakov Avinu. Yeah, a spark of Yaakov Avinu. So what's the point? What was the Rebbe unpacking? So the Rebbe was unpacking that by Yaakov there was no Yotza Mimenu. There was no child that he didn't let go of anyone. Everyone remained connected. He connected to every child. What's the Inyan of Yaakov? What's the Inyan of Bria Hatichain, of Tiferes, of Midas Emes? The consistency that you reach every single person. Basically, there's no Yid that's outside. The Rebbe's achrayus is on the full yid. Going back, Ashkenazi tells the story. He says that the Rebbe, when the Rebbe was living before on the other side, before the Rebbe moved to Nostrum, the Rebbe lived on the other side of Eastern Parkway. So he says there was a guy, a Gerer Chassid that went off the derech and he moved to like Singapore. And he had a daughter living here. He came to visit her in the 40s. And the Rebbe, in the elevator, they spent like a minute in the elevator. So the Rebbe said, "Where do you live?" He said, "Singapore." "What do you do there?" "He trades sheep and he shares sheep. He's wool. So the Rebbe said, "Is there a mikveh noshim in Singapore?" So he said to the Rebbe, "I'm not there to like that's not on my mind. That's not why I'm there." That was it. And then the Rebbe went to his floor.
They have from Eden over there.
No.
You see. So then, years later, 40 years later, the late 80s, he was in New York, and he was frum. He became frum, whatever, with the Levish, with the whole business. And I'll tell you, he came, he went by dollars. The Rebbe looked at him, and the Rebbe said, "Is there a mikveh in Singapore?" And so the guy went back to the Gerer Rebbe. And the Mom Rebbe. So the Gerer said, the fact that he recognized you, right, what you looked like before, and the fact that he recognized you, I'm not in the spall. Because the Rebbe doesn't see the body, he sees the soul. So that's it. He's all your soul. But what I'm shocked, what I'm like, is that for 40 years, what's sitting on the Rebbe's consciousness is there a mikveh in Singapore. Like that's what,
How they reconcile the Alter Rebbe was against people go on the Rebbe's palace? Alter Rebbe told Karlinim that this concept, people who see him can be hidden under the palace, doesn't work here.
In other words, they have to work on their own. Right. Right?
House would be a conif.
So what's the Alter Rebbe saying? The Alter Rebbe is saying that the truth is there are Yidden, that Beruchnius, they on their own, they have no life. Even though they're a chelik alakam mimal, they're like a kvayim, they're like a heel. They're like a fingernail. It's lifeless. But through the tzaddikim, they become inspired. In other words, what is a neshama? A neshama is a selfless agent of the Eibishter. It has no self-interest. And he's saying the only way to live that way is through Rashi B'nai Yisrael Shabbaderim. The tzaddikim provide you with that. In other words, just like what the Alter Rebbe says in Sharichot V'Amunah, that Hashem, through His compassion, He built into the world miracles, right? And Oisus Amoifsim Shebetoira, and tzaddikim, miracles through tzaddikim. In other words, if not for those things, the world would seem to us to be completely disconnected from the Eibishter. There's Teva and that's it. So the Eibishter had Rachmanis, and he, in other words, Ra she'eino olam miskayim. What happened? Hashem created the world with midas hadin. Ra she'eino olam miskayim. Shitef ima, He added midas harachamim. What's the midas harachamim? That He embedded miracles into the. Yeah. Thank you.
But we see also after the Holocaust, the Rebbe did tell the Rebbe that the Am Yisrael is never.
Right. So I'm saying here, what Alter Rebbe is saying is, like I said, Shabbos in the Maimer Va'ata Tetzaveh, he says that our faith in Hashem comes from the tzaddik.
I didn't do anything today. I didn't run today.
Over here, he's saying that our ability to live life selflessly comes from the Rebbe. The elikus in us, that the elikus should be revealed. How could it be Karev Ma'id?
So the miracle
through the Rebbe. Without the Rebbe, you'll be numb.
Have a metric card, you wouldn't have to
So the
do it.
miracle has to technically happen with the tzaddik.
I went down.
Oh,
Here he's speaking about
I didn't use the other.
the tzaddik is the brain. His kashrus to the brain. That's what gives us life. Ubazeh yuvan. We will now understand the Masha Omer, Maimer Azal, Apostle Dovkebe, the Gemara says, Rashi brings in a Chubish. The question is, how could you cleave to Hashem? Hashem is fire. So what does it say? You should be hadbek b'tamidei chachamim. Kol adavik b'tamidei chachamim, mala olav akosov, ke'ilu nidbak b'shchina mamish. Why? So he's saying it's not a nice Torah. It's not a nice drosha, a vort. He says, no, because that's your connection. That's the fingernail connecting to the brain of the child. What is the tzaddik? Chochma of Chochma Elah. The tzaddik is hu levade hu ve'ein zulase. The tzaddik is a manifestation of Chochma Datzilus. Shu is barech v'chochmase echad v'hu amad achulu. Even those people who rebel, unique as nefesh ruach neshama shalahem mibchinas acharayim shal nefesh ruach nishmas tamidei chachamim. What's the Alter Rebbe saying? Even though they're getting chayas from the tzaddik, but they can't feel it. It's mibchinas acharayim. It's not alive. They're spiritually numb. The neshama is buried. It's hidden. Now he concludes. Most of the text from here till the end of the Perek is straight out of the Arizal. The Alter Rebbe changes the order a little bit. It's a little bit Mashakosa Bezer, Bezer Chodosh. So it's brought B'Shem the Ari. Akoponim. It says in Mashakosa. The Arizal is quoting.
I thought that he has different zor, different.
So Mashakosa Bezer Sheikar Toli. The main thing is Sheikadish Atzme B'Shas Tashmish Davko. That during intimacy the couple should be mekadosh themselves. They should have holy intentions. And dafke b'shas tashmish. Masha'ein kein b'nei amei ha'oretz chulu. However, the b'nei amei ha'oretz, their parents are not mekadosh asem b'shas tashmish, so they're lost souls. Why is that? Hainu mishum she'ein lecha nefesh ruach haneshama she'ein levush min nefesh da'atzmas ha'aveh ve'imei. So, very simply, there are two ways to look at this levush. One is, more than two. One is practically the nefesh habamis. The nefesh habamis is the levush that connects the nefesh halikis with the body. The nefesh halikis has no kesh. The nefesh habamis is the soul of the body, and it's the bridge between the nefesh halikis and the body. And the Tzemach Tzedek says that it's the nefesh hasichlis. The Tzemach Tzedek gives more.
There's more steps in the whole thing.
Yeah, the thirds, like there's a third soul, the nefesh hasichlis. He speaks about it in a much more manifest way in that mitzvah secha and other places. So that's the levush. So the more refined a person's nefesh hasichlis is or nefesh habamis, so the more connection, the more spiritually sensitive they are. So every person has such a levush. Obviously, you can't do a mitzvah without a body. Every mitzvah whatever you get in this world, sustenance, whatever you get, your body is experiencing. Any hashpah in the physical world, your body is experiencing. So it's coming to you through that levush. If he sanctifies himself, Yamshich levush kodesh lenishmas benoy, b'mamshich to his son, a edel, a kodesh, a fili neshama g'dayla, even a great neshama, tzricha lekiddush aviv. You still need a edel aguf. Avo haneshama atzmo. But so that's the levush is dependent on the parents, but the neshama itself is not. Now, when he says the neshama itself is not, what he means is not that it can't be, but it isn't necessarily. In other words, occasionally there's a fluke that parents who are not of a great spiritual stature will bring a great neshama into the world, dafka, because that's the way the Eibishter like sneaks it into the world. Aval Neshama Atzma Hini Lefomim, it occasionally Nishmas Adam Gavoya Lein gets a neshama, a very high neshama, Bali is B'nai Shadam lives every shuffle, becomes the neshama of a lowly person. Mishkas of Arizal calls up, look at the Torah Parshas Vayera, time Mrs. Parshas Bereshis. It's like when, Peretz, Yehuda's, the twins, right? The father of Mashiach, the progenitor of Mashiach, came in through an illicit relationship, came into the world. So, what the Alter Rebbe is saying, that the poil, that, so the responsibility of the parents is to be Mekadesh, but to remember that the neshama itself really is completely 1,000% from the Eibishter. So in the maskana, in the punchline of what the Alter Rebbe is saying, the Alter Rebbe is saying that even the lowest person, and even if a person says, "What do you mean? Based on my behavior, what kind of shaykhs do I have with Elikus?" It's like what the Rebbe said to George Ward then, when he, the famous video, when he says he made a minyan with people who have no shaykhs. I said, what do you mean they have no shaykhs? Their children are Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. They're Jews, they're just like we're Jews. What does a neshama mean? A neshama means that I have the capacity to forget about my physical needs and not to be selfish and to serve Hashem wholeheartedly. Because every yid has that capacity. Every yid could be by connecting to the Rebbe, we could be in that state of being a chelik alakam imam mamish. So in this part of the perek, the Alter Rebbe speaks only of the core of the neshama. The neshama as it's nimshach from chochma ilah. The neshama, before, we're not talking now about, in other words, we're not talking about character. That one person is more creative, and one person is more developed, more polished, We're talking, in other words, this trait is beyond the selfish, selfless trait is independent. It's not a conversation of how talented you are. And in that conversation, it comes to, what am I doing in this world? It's important for us to realize that our character is secondary. In other words, that's the tool by which we fulfill our mission. What are we doing here?
Do we
Right?
have Wi-Fi or no?
Huh?
Do we have Wi-Fi or no?
Right? What are we doing in this world? We're here to be. We're
Very
here
good one.
at the Baal Shem Tov, right? As Hashem's agents. What does it mean, Neir Hashem? We're here to bring light into the world. Every person brings light by whatever means they have. I don't know if I mentioned this when I went to visit in the summer. We went for one day to my son-in-law. In Florida, they moved, so a friend of his gave him a gift, a letter of the Rebbe on a plaque. And the Rebbe writes in the letter, there's so much to do in this world that every one of us should be using every single talent, every single resource, every single ability to lift up the world. Like, we need all your koiches.
The Rebbe wrote that?
Yeah, the Rebbe writes that. There's so much to do. There's so much to do in the world. So I'm going to... Okay,